our sponsors. And this is really great to have this event. We're super excited about AWS. And I just wanted to ask the AWS people to stand up in the room, if they could. There's some at the back there. Awesome. So please go ask them lots of questions. We thought about doing this event right after reInvent, so we sort of threw it together very quickly because we thought it was really important things to be able to do, to discuss DevOps with the community. You know, one thing as a business that we have a really strong mandate is to build the AWS community in Canada. We run all the user groups for AWS throughout Canada, in Vancouver, in Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. So it's something that we really believe in strongly in building that community. As a business, I don't want to do too much of a sell. That's not what we had to do. But we, are big believers in AWS. We focus on it. We do pretty much everything soup to nuts as a consultancy on AWS in terms of professional services, helping companies migrate to, architect, implement, and of course we do 24/7 support services on AWS. And we love AWS. So, today, I thought we would just kick off the session with a discussion with myself and Kima, and then we can listen to all the speakers and hear what the good things they've got to say and learnings. So in the room today, who here has implemented DevOps? Show of hands. So probably about 15, not even 15%. So there's still a long way to go in terms of where we are in the DevOps journey.
Maybe a more interesting question is how many people plan to implement DevOps in the next 12 months? Okay, you. So I'm hoping that you're going to get more value because of what is expecting you on the journey to implement DevOps from the conference. I wanted to give a sort of our view, our perspective on what we believe DevOps is as a buzzword, right? It's ill-defined, too many views, too many misunderstood perspectives on what DevOps is. The way we view it, there's like two simple principles. One is taking operations, making them first-class citizens into the whole life cycle from requirements through the whole transition until something moves to production, operations, and similar. So that's one of the tenets. The other one is sharing the responsibility with the development teams, with the people driving the implementation when it comes to incident handling, when it comes to improving operations, etc. Right? Those are the two tenets. It's not about the tooling, it's not about the pragmatic project management stemming from Agile, etc. It's about taking operations, bringing them to the forefront, and taking development, sharing the responsibility on the operational side. At the core of DevOps, it's an attempt to manage change, right? We all deal with change. We live in a world where change is becoming faster. We all want to try to reduce, time to market, reduce waste, etc. So DevOps is really an attempt, and I emphasize attempt because 5 years in the future there could be something new, better, whatever, improved DevOps on steroids, whatever. It's about finding ways how to manage that change and how to control that change so we don't hurt through that change, but we also don't fear it, right? And by collaborating, by improving the communication and removing the walls between different departments within an organization, the idea is that that change will be much easier to manage. The other aspect is practicing change. Rather than just reacting to change when it happens, we want to be able to be kind of like the firefighters, right? You don't become a firefighter by reading from a book. You do it by actually going in and trying to put some fires out, right? Dealing with that type of environment. Same, you are not going to have good, agile, nimble IT operations or any kind of operations if you're not if you're not inducing and practicing that change yourself, right? And you want to be able to instill that type of culture without hurting, obviously, right? Having a controlled approach to change. One of the questions that we often get asked as a business, and generally, what people will know in the industry is, well, I don't run a software development. I don't have a SaaS product out there. Why should I care about DevOps, right? Why is DevOps important for non-software development companies? If you listen to what I said at the beginning, it is about managing change. And change is not inherent only in software development companies. It's inherent in any type of enterprise, corporate, any type of environment where there is some kind of operations. If you don't have operations, maybe you don't care about DevOps, right? This is about bridging the gap between the people introducing the change and the people supporting the change. But if you do have operations, I would argue that by taking the principles of automating some of the processes, reducing the waste, improving the time it takes to go through a change, even if you are buying a product and implementing it internally, that in itself is an implementation effort, right? Being part of that requirement gathering and understanding how we're going to support this product, how we're going to create a staging environment and make sure that we can manage updates, etc. Right? There is still a lot of value in implementing DevOps on your end. So hopefully, if there is people in the audience, maybe quick show of hands, how many people here are running that type of corporate environment, enterprise environment, no SaaS product, no software development?
No enterprise? Yes, sort of.
Few? All right, so, maybe this audience will benefit more from the discussion because you already bought into the idea of there is some benefit to DevOps, but I wanted to make sure if there's people in the audience who are still sort of on the fence, hopefully we'll grab your attention and give you some more insight into why DevOps is important. For the people that have implemented DevOps, how many of you have felt that implementing DevOps as a process made your organization more efficient? Good. So if I can estimate that will be half of the people that raised their hands before about how many implemented DevOps, hopefully the other 5 will realize some of the efficiencies. The reason why I'm asking is another question that's very common is how do you measure the success of implementing DevOps, right? What are some of the important metrics? What's the success criteria for being able to track my progress? What does DevOps bring to me? At the most common goal why people implement DevOps is reducing time to market. And that, in many ways, it's easy to visualize. Like, I want to be able to remove waste from my life cycle. I want to be able to introduce new features, new applications, new services faster and bring into production. And it's also relatively easy to visualize how I'm going to measure it. Right? Many people say, well, I'm going to look at what I'm doing right now. It takes 6 months for a new release or whatever. If I can reduce that to 3 months, I've gained a significant improvement. But there are other aspects of how to measure your improvements and how to set some success criteria that go beyond the time to market. One is automation. Introducing automation for the sake of just introducing automation without understanding what it brings to you is, I think, missing the point. Being able to measure how long does it take for me to provision a new environment, deploy a new release, being able to calculate, maybe the time doesn't shrink, but calculate the effort that goes into it, right? Rather than 5 people doing it, now I'm doing it with 2 people because the automation helped me reduce the effort that goes into it. That's another important aspect. But an aspect that we care a lot about and try to help customers do it is improving the quality of that information in automation. Being able to understand, like many people are doing scripting. Being able to rate the quality of that scripting today to building a pipeline, building a process that's fully automated and understanding how that automation improved because it's more robust. I spend a lot less time to change it and improve it, right? Being able to identify areas that are important to you and measure them is key to the success, and we keep emphasizing to clients, it's important to understand where you are today, establish a baseline, and keep track of those metrics, those KPIs that you decide to improve on. And finally, there's many more, but another one is efficiency. It's really about bringing back to particularly the operations people, but many other parts of the organization, bringing back efficiency, giving them the time to focus on improvements, reducing some of the waste, reducing the firefighting, reducing the effort that goes into troubleshooting and break-fix work and investigating problems, and bringing back that time so they can work on improvements, they can work on development, they can work on automating some more processes, etc. Which brings me to, DevOps and cloud are kind of intertwined and developing in parallel, and there's a big reason for that. Public cloud in particular is enabling companies to automate infrastructure provisioning. Right? We're moving from the world of hardware provisioning with procurement departments and taking many weeks and months to self-serve, write a little API to be able to provision the infrastructure you want. And DevOps piggybacks on that. That takes a big advantage of that. And I think it will be interesting to see how that relates and how the public cloud helps those companies that want to improve their process around the infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we also want to talk about when you talk about public cloud, we're going to talk about the different clouds out there, public, private, hybrid, and obviously there's a lot going on in that world in terms of movement and transformation. I mean, one of the trends that we're seeing today is, originally there was a lot on hybrid and conversations around public and private clouds. We're seeing that hybrid is sort of, it's still a very valid and a good conversation to have, and lots of companies are implementing it. But we're also seeing that the trend is hybrid is just really a bridge to get into the cloud. And, we're seeing companies implement it, get a taste of the cloud, and how not really easy, but how much speed they can actually gain in terms of their organization in the cloud versus on-premise or in a private cloud. Because in a private cloud, you're kind of constrained by how much infrastructure you have. So you have to, there's a lot of capital costs, there's a lot of still have to provision things. So I know many people who bought into the cloud sort of get that, but some still are, there's still an argument out there happening. But the major trend that we're seeing is, big cloud adoption. Of course, in Canada, there's a few other constraints like, lots of conversations around hopefully one day getting an AWS data center in Canada or region in Canada. So that we hope is on AWS's roadmap. That would probably ease the conversation with a few of the enterprise and public sector. But software and technology companies don't really care, provided it's in their privacy statements, and we'll talk about that later today in the security panel. So, I mean, I think it's important to see the cloud as a means to really go fast, right? And DevOps is just another means to really push your organization harder. And we'll listen to all the conversations today about DevOps and how companies are actually doing it.
I just remembered in our little cheat sheet we had a question I still want to ask because I think it's important. How many of you are using public cloud today for production workloads or important workloads? Show of hands.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. A little over half, I think, maybe 60% or something like that. Good. There's the raging debate between private and public cloud is an important one because we are taking a pragmatic approach. Obviously, as a business, we do AWS, and I want to discuss about some of the evolution behind the platform and some of the benefits and where the direction of the platform is. But I do want to throw in something at the people that are considering private cloud and they're being, wondering if that's a good investment. It can be a good investment if you have constraints that prevent you to move to the public cloud because you end up practicing. You're given the opportunity to deal with automated infrastructure provisioning, even though you live in a box that doesn't have the elasticity and the huge capacity and some of the services that the public cloud offers. And I would encourage you to move there for some reasons I want to mention, but it's important to practice the approach. And if the only way for you to practice the approach is private cloud, right, by all means do it. When you're ready to move to the public cloud, it's going to be so much easier and going to be so much better at being able to go through that adoption. But speaking about AWS, speaking about public cloud, one of the things that has been shifting over the years is it moved from more of a commoditized, infrastructure-focused, being an infrastructure-focused provider, where you get your compute, your storage, your networking, into more of a platform that has been evolving into higher-level services. Right? AWS is quick to point out that they love to automate things, to remove what they call the, I forgot the term now, the undifferentiated heavy lifting. Right? The point is that every business has their core focus, and infrastructure is often not that core focus. Just providing you virtual machines is not helping enough. So what AWS has been striving to do, and what we as a business and me as a person loves to see as a trend, is higher level services. From managed services like managed databases, you don't have to worry about backups, reduces the DBA effort behind it, to even higher level services. Some of the people in the US might have heard from last year the announcement about Lambda, a service that's like serverless deployment. That service within a year permeated the whole platform, driving new models of how to implement workloads in the cloud, right? Event-driven, easy, quick to deploy, supporting models like microservices that are becoming prominent, particularly in relationship to DevOps. This is a type of innovation that, by centralizing the infrastructure knowledge, centralizing the knowledge how to automate certain operations, brought AWS the ability to innovate on top of that core platform and bring value-added services, right? Kinesis is another one for people that are not familiar. It's a streaming ingestion, data ingestion service that allows you to stream data into it and then send it to other processing platforms. Or we got the announcement last few weeks ago about a BI analytics product called QuickSight that allows you to discover all the data you have in your environment, give you an ability to model that data, and then run analytics or plug it into some of the analytics platforms that you might be using, right? These are the value-added services that make the platform very exciting to use. Even if you are just forklifting your infrastructure to benefit from the commoditized infrastructure side of things, right? The virtual machines that you can get there and the elasticity, just being in that platform now opens a world of opportunities to implement new workloads, to approach things very differently, right? And I think that's important. It is very important because it is practically impossible to gain that level of access to services and opportunities when you do private cloud, when you do your own data center, when you run your own server room, right, whatever that might be. So there is sort of, your business is jumping into a platform that can support you over the years and give you more and more services that you can take advantage of.
So I think we've only got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Kima likes to.
I like to talk.
Which is great.
Yeah. Quick, I mean, you can talk about some of the experiences with the customers.
Yeah, so, just want to sort of close off with some of the other trends that we're seeing. Obviously the major trend with client-server applications is on the decline, where companies now, in the majority, are saying, no, we want SaaS, we have a cloud-first strategy, we don't want client-server, we don't want to host anything, we want to move to the cloud and cloud-based applications. And Salesforce took the lead on that, and there's just a lot of SaaS out there, so we're seeing SaaS really on the rise and client-server applications on the decline, which is an interesting trend and an obvious trend. The unobvious trend is that enterprise want to control their data. This has always been the case and will likely always be the case. And there's a clash with SaaS and multi-tenant databases, where you're sharing those databases with other enterprises, versus having your own data. And so we're seeing with a bunch of our customers, one in particular called BitStew, out in Vancouver, is a industrial log analysis for the electrical grid system and other industrial applications. They have big utility customers, right? And the utility customers are saying, hey, we want to control our own data. We don't want it sitting and living with other companies' data. So what we're helping them with is helping them build a strategy of how they implement their solution in each of those enterprises' own cloud environment, right? So I think we're going to see this distribution of SaaS, and being able to manage those applications is going to be a sort of joint venture between the utilities and the SaaS provider, where the SaaS provider has them update all those applications, just like with client server today. They send you a disk or you download it. It's going to be a lot more DevOps on both sides of the equation. So I think that there's a lot of companies that want to get rid of their infrastructure and just go to SaaS completely, but there's also big enterprises who still want to own the data, and they're not going to be able to get away with that completely. So that's an interesting trend that's coming up. So I just want to close off. I'm getting the wave that we're done. One of the other pieces that everyone talks about is a multi-cloud strategy. Oh, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. We want to be on Azure. We want to be on Google. We want to be on AWS. We want to hedge our bets. So that's something that we get all the time and talking to our customers all the time about. And it's a conversation that you need to have very early on in terms of how you deal with that. And we are obviously biased because we work with AWS only. However, it's not a choice. It's a choice. It's a technology decision. And the way we sort of phrase it is, when you look at that decision, and Oracle was in front of you 5 years ago, and you decided, yes, we're going to invest in Oracle. Either way, it was going to take you a year to get into Oracle, a year to get any benefits, and if you wanted to leave, it was going to take you a year to get out. It's a technology decision, and no matter what you do, it's going to cost you to move, either way, wherever you go. So, that's our argument why invest in a platform, invest in AWS is our, obviously, but go all in, because, ultimately, there's so much to know about these platforms. It's a massive investment, and trying to do a lot of them is not going to serve you very well. So that's sort of the message. And yeah, I think we're done. So thank you very much for coming today. And there's a lot of good speakers, and we're excited to learn about DevOps. Awesome.